I'm all about concepts. When I first started Jiu-Jitsu, I wasn't taught concepts. I was taught that your Jiu-Jitsu is measured by two things. How often you're submitting somebody, which represents how good you're getting or how you're progressing. And number two, how often you're getting submitted, which reflects how badly you suck. So that's really how everything was measured. It wasn't about, oh, let me give you concepts, let me do this. It was like, here's a move, completely isolated from anything. Oh, here's Q lock. Okay, well how do you, no, here's how you do it here. The arm goes this way, you tweak a good Q lock. Okay, now the rest you gotta figure out. For me, what's important is to give you guys concepts, because those concepts are gonna enable you to keep these concepts as building blocks in your jiu-jitsu forever, okay? So one of the concepts that I strongly emphasize, and you gotta make this law in your head, that whenever you're on the bottom, it should only be the result of somebody forcing you to the bottom and you're on your back, that's their reward. Everything else is fight for the top, get to the top, stay on top, okay? When you're passing the guard, you have to start thinking in terms of I'm staying on top and I'm improving my position ever so slightly. I'm staying on top, I'm improving my position ever so slightly. Because if you think how I used to think, which is pass the guard, okay, you think, okay, the legs are up, knees here, okay, I'm gonna drop the knee cut, oh, I'm gonna turn the pass, no, half guard, you know, way too much to digest. And then, I remember I don't know, like 6 years ago, Jean-Jacques goes, don't pass, just stay on top. And I'm like, yeah, just stay on top and now improve your position. Oh, stay on top. You know, I didn't even understand what he was saying until about 4 weeks, okay? Don't hit the tripod. So, you have to think to yourself like this. Fight for the top, get to the top, and stay on top. When you're passing, your objective is to stay on top. It's more important than for you to pass. Because in those passes, the person on the bottom, as you would for the person on top, you're looking to exploit mistakes they're making. And if they're hyper-focused on passing, they begin to literally reveal what they're doing. Because once you understand passing enough in your own jiu-jitsu game, you understand, well, they're passing, their movement is gonna be followed by this movement, and now I can begin to kind of exploit that. When you're focused on staying on top, it kind of blurs everything together. You may go left, you may go right, but your objective is to stay on top, okay? That's number one. The next concept that's really easy to understand is if it's good for them, it's bad for you. If you take what's good for them and turn it into bad for them, it automatically turns in good for you. Whatever's good for you is bad for them. Very simple, okay? Now, it may not seem simple, but if you think about it, and I'll show you guys how it applies in just normal terms. If I have, let's say, Kurt in my guard, if he's postured, good for him, bad for me. If I break his posture, good for me, bad for him. If he takes what's good for me, which is his broken posture, and turns it into posture, he took what's good for me, and now it turned bad for me. This is one of the most simple ways to quickly assess your position and to get your bearings. Because oftentimes you get wound up in all this movement, all this kind of stuff, and you're kind of like, oh, you know, and then you think of it in real simple terms. That grip is good for them, let me remove that grip, it'll turn it good for me, and not as good for them. But there's no in between. It's either good for them, good for you, or meaning good for them, bad for you, good for you, bad for them. This is a concept that you guys need to be able to understand how it applies during your rolling. It's very, very important. When you begin to blend the two concepts, fight for the top, get to the top, stay on top. When you're staying on top, you can now be relieved of the stress of trying to configure in the head, which pass am I gonna do? Am I gonna do a knee cut, or am I gonna do a knee drop? Am I gonna go high? Am I gonna go low? I'm staying on top and I'm improving my position. But when you combine it with, oh, well, good for them, bad for me now. I'm like hovering on top, oh, good for, oh, he's got a grip, remove that grip, you know? And that's how you improve your position. And slowly that improvement of position incrementally turns into a guard pass, okay? The next concept is a little bit more on the advanced side, but as a concept, it is absolutely vital. You guys understand? Every position has its beginning, middle, end. A guard pass has a beginning, has a middle, has an end. The person on the bottom who's getting their guard pass, let's say if it starts with closed guard, that's the beginning. Person starts to open the guard and starts to drive a knee through, that's already the middle. They get around your legs, control hips, head, chest, they get the side control, that's the end. The question is, at what point did you on the bottom, who's getting your guard pass, begin to implement your beginning, your middle, okay, and your potential seeking the end, which is your goals from the bottom, in order to make your progression? Or were you just sitting there waiting for them to achieve their end? Because when you acknowledge and you recognize, oh, here's the beginning, ooh, here comes somewhere, they're getting close to the middle, I better start doing something. Because for two reasons. I need to start my progression to my middle and my end of something, which is hopefully get to the top or maybe recover guard again or whatever, because it will disrupt them from getting to their end. If you do not begin to start your movement towards the middle of your ultimate objective for that particular scenario, you're gonna allow that person to get to the middle and then to get to the end. And once they get to the end, you're flat on your back. If it's, let's say, side control, they're controlling your head. And now you're starting, she's fun. And now you're starting to progress and begin from their position, which now is restarting, because now they're at the beginning of the new progression, which is gonna be to somehow mount, maybe turn you on your side, and to begin to already work for a submission from there, because it's hard to work for submission when you're in somebody's guard, but when you get to side control, that end could be the very, very end. Or that end could be you get mounted. So the question is, what are you gonna do about it, and when are you gonna start your progression to your middle, your end? Because when you begin to start your progression, it begins to disrupt their movement towards the end. And you can begin to even reverse their progression, because as they're passing and you begin to play an open guard such as a De La Riva, and maybe you'll just recover a closed guard again, for example, and you just basically brought them right back to the very beginning. The question is, who can implement these strategies in the moment? And that just requires mat time and understanding that if you combine now these three concepts, okay, which is fight for the top, get to the top, stay on top, good for them, bad for you, good for you, bad for them, and beginning, middle, end. If you learn how to begin to blend all three, blend two, apply one, it's fantastic. Apply one individually, fantastic. Take two and begin to blend them and intertwine them, you're gonna see a whole other level of your own jiu-jitsu, because it's gonna be chest jiu-jitsu. Combine two, fight for the top, get on top, and good for them, bad for you, good for you, bad for them. Those two are great to start with. Just start with good for them, bad for you. But when you can take all three, okay, and like the Trinity, and combine those three, man, you have a huge advantage over the other person who could be thinking one-dimensionally, two-dimensional, because you're playing already three-dimensional, four-dimensional type of jiu-jitsu that is rooted in far greater strategy than just pass, push, knee, get through, side control, pull, you know? That's fine, but a lot of guys get very comfortable in that basic comfort zone jiu-jitsu, and they hold on to that, get real, I'm a victim of it, I'm guilty of it. I did that, white belt, got good at using size, blue belt, same thing, wouldn't open my guard. What caused me to open my guard? I tore my knee, couldn't close it. So in order to train, I had to keep it open. And I'm like, oh man, this is fantastic. It's hard for them to get past my guard, because I'm like, you're not gonna get past my guard. Well, I'm not gonna close it, because I can't even close it. I can't even bend my knee like this, you know, but I'm sure gonna play open guard. And that really taught me a big lesson, because you get stuck in your comfort zone jiu-jitsu, and it's gonna haunt you until you begin to change it. And I need to take your comfort zone jiu-jitsu and help you guys get out of that comfort zone. So, having said that, we're going to talk about the De La Riva because this